If we are truly what we repeatedly do, then literature is what we repeatedly read. And what do we read repeatedly? Fairy tales.
We read fairy tales repeatedly, don't we?
I'm not talking about reading them once when we were children and then forgetting about them. I mean, have you ever found yourself rereading your favorite fairy tales even as an adult? What does that tell you about us as a society? What do these stories say about our collective unconscious? This is what we want to explore today. For example, let's take the story of Cinderella. Do you think it is just a simple fairy tale about a poor girl who goes to a fancy party and finds a handsome prince? Oh, no. And it's hard. It's a story about hope. It's the story of someone who, despite all odds, manages to make something of herself. Sure, she had some help from her fairy godmother, but without her own grit and determination, that magic wouldn't have lasted. Cinderella is the story of someone who didn't let her circumstances define her. It is a story we need to hear again and again because no matter how bad our situation seems, it can change. That's what Cinderella teaches us. Now, why do we need to hear this story repeatedly? Because it speaks to our deepest desires for a better life. We all want to go to that fancy party and find our Prince Charming, don't we? But let's be honest, life isn't always that glamorous. Sometimes we have to work overtime and miss out on our friends' parties. Sometimes we have to save up 4 months to afford that dress we really want. Sometimes finding our Prince Charming means swiping right hundreds of times. The point is, real life isn't a fairy tale. So when we read fairy tales like Cinderella, we're reminded of the magic that's possible in this world. It gives us hope that even if we're not living in a castle, we can still find our happily ever after. Let's look at another classic, Snow White. On the surface, it is the story of a beautiful girl who escapes her stepmother's jealousy and finds love with a prince. But what does that really mean? What does it say about our culture? It says that beauty is power. In a world where beauty is often the only thing that sets you apart, Snow White teaches us that it's important to stay true to ourselves. Sure, the evil queen was jealous of Snow White's beauty, but it was Snow White's inner goodness that truly set her apart. In a world obsessed with appearances, Snow White reminds us that it's what's inside that counts. That's why we love this story and want to hear it again and again. Because in a world where we're constantly bombarded with images of what we should look like, it's nice to be reminded of our worth. Think about the countless other fairy tales we know by heart. Hansel and Gretel, the Frog Prince, Sleeping Beauty. They all follow the same basic structure. A young protagonist faces a series of challenges and ultimately triumphs through their courage and kindness. Why do these stories resonate with us so deep? Because they reflect our own values and aspirations. They remind us that no matter how dark things may seem, there's always a glimmer of hope. But it's not just fairy tale. Think about the classic novels we read. Pride and Prejudice, Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights. These stories deal with complex themes like love, loss, social class, and gender roles. They force us to confront difficult questions about ourselves and our society. Why do we keep coming back to these stories? Because they challenge us to grow and change. They us that life is never easy and that we should appreciate every moment. So the next time you find yourself rereading a favorite book or watching a classic movie, ask yourself, what is it about this story that keeps drawing me in? What does it say about our culture? What does it reveal about our hopes and dreams? By exploring these questions, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. So let's dive in and discover the magic that lies within these timeless tales.